Welcome to Avant-Garde Entrepreneur. I'm so glad you're here today with me, my friend. As we step into the week of Thanksgiving here in America, I wanted to bring a special mashup episode that's rooted in gratitude for where we are, for who we've become, and for the quiet wisdom that guides us forward. Today, you'll hear from two incredible women whose stories remind us that good isn't settling, it's sacred. And that intuition, that still inner knowing, is the bridge between striving and trusting. First, we hear from Heather Campbell, author of Good is Amazing, who helps us release the pressure to be perfect. Then we'll move into a conversation with Jenn Cohen, an intuitive consultant who teaches us how to tune out the noise and listen to what's true. So, wherever you are, whether you're still working, if you're traveling, reflecting, or simply taking a pause, this episode is a little gratitude note for your soul. Heather Campbell is the author of the book, Good is Amazing, and I am holding it up if you are watching it on YouTube. It's beautiful and yellow. You can't miss it when you're shopping for it. As the CEO and founder of Ready, Set, Recover, Heather empowers people to get ready for and recover from surgery in a better way by focusing on all the non-clinical aspects of surgery that no one really talks about. And in doing so, it not only helps the patients, but she also helps surgeons, hospitals, and insurance companies. Prior to being an entrepreneur, she was an entrepreneur, holding senior leadership roles in media companies such as the VP of Synergy and Brand Integration at ESPN and VP of Alchemy at Odyssey. Creating and supporting community has always been a staple in Heather's life, and she even helped found a public middle school. Heather competed for and won a full merit scholarship for her MBA at New York University, or NYU. And after almost 30 years in New York City, she now lives in the mountains of Massachusetts in the United States with her husband, 2 children, and her dog, Tobin. Heather, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you. I'm so excited for this conversation.
Heather, you have had quite a career. Can you tell us a little bit about the early part of your life, sort of leading up to some of the big moves, where you grew up, maybe a little bit about your family life? Because we do have a global audience, and I think it's really helpful for people to understand that family life and growing up life, it's different in different parts of the world.
Absolutely. Yes. So I had, oh my gosh, in so many ways, a wonderful, idyllic childhood. I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in the Midwest. While I had a very small immediate family, it was me and my mom and my sister. I'm one of 23 cousins on my mom's side. So I was constantly surrounded by family. When you think about some of the moments growing up, I had a cheering section at almost every basketball game, softball game, volleyball game. I had people who had my back, who showed up for me and with me. Truly, truly wonderful. Loved being there in Wisconsin. I went to the University of Wisconsin, which is the big school in that state, this a state school. Go Badgers. And there I met my then boyfriend, now husband. And he really opened my eyes up to some adventures. I thought I'd possibly move to the big city of Chicago, but instead we moved across the country and moved to California, and started a life. And I got a job. I didn't know what I wanted to do. It was not that this was going to be a plan. I got a temp job, which led to a full-time role, which led to another role, which led to. Living in California was wonderful, but the job that I had was wonderful, learned a lot, but it was just a job. And when Steve decided to go to NYU and got in there for business school, I was happy to move back. Within the things that I've done and the places that I've been, again, I think the biggest importance for me was I found people, and I had people who were cheering me on.
And it sounds like, a lot of people, their path is sort of laid out and somewhat linear. And I really appreciate the fact that your plan was there is no plan. I think, especially as young people, and you talk about this in the book, as young people, there's so much pressure. One of the spoiler alert, we're going to talk a lot about the book during today, but you talk about the pressures of going to college. Like, what's your major is one of the chapter titles. And there's
Yeah.
so much pressure for young people to have this plan to be especially in a lot of developing countries where young people are expected to take care of their parents and their siblings and their cousins. There's a lot of pressure to be an attorney or a doctor. And I really appreciate the fact that part of your story is that you went from it was about relationships and just kind of going from one thing to the next. And you didn't have this whole huge elaborate plan. And look how amazing your life ended up.
Thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
it's funny. I think because I've often said I don't have a plan. People are like, "Oh, I have no idea." I'm actually realizing that's not true. I have had a plan. It's just that my plan is to be happy and healthy
Yeah. Yeah.
and to take care of myself.
Yeah.
That's my plan. That as an adult, I need to put a roof over my head. I need to put good food in my stomach. I need health insurance. I live in the United States, so I have to be able to pay for that. I need a little bit more financially to have fun. But that's my plan. That then changes the decisions I make because I want to be able to live into that plan. It's funny, actually. I go back and I speak. It's almost time. Usually it's in October when I go. I go and speak at a class that I took when I was at NYU. I don't know how I took this class. I really am so confused. I took a merger and acquisitions JD MBA class.
Wow, that's intense.
And I have no interest in that. I don't know what my thought process was, that maybe I had just heard how wonderful the professor is because he is wonderful, David Yermak. But anyway, I found myself in this class, mergers and acquisitions. And in it, the professor talked, one of the lectures was about synergy and how if an organization is merging or acquiring and they say it's because of synergies, you know that they basically don't know what they're talking about. And they're just trying to make something up because they want to do this. So he does this whole lecture, and I graduate and I send him my business card, which is Heather Campbell, manager of synergy. That's literally what's on the card. And years later, I see he's in the news for something, and I email him to congratulate him. And I say, I don't know if you remember me. I was in your class. I sent you my card. He said, remember you. I use your card in that lecture every year. It's the biggest laugh I get the entire semester. And as we were catching up, he said, would you come in and do this class? So I think for the last 10 years or so, I've now gone in and I am the synergy merger and acquisition lecturer. And it's always funny because at some point someone will say, how did you get this job? And I will look at him, and we've got a lot of shtick now after doing this for so many years. And I will say, wait, isn't there a synergy track here? We've got finance, marketing, consulting at NYU. Wasn't there a synergy track? And everyone laughs. And I say, when I went to NYU, I recognized the doors that they open. If you want one of those doors open for you, these places are incredible. Like, there's a whole process that's going to lead you right into one of these types of jobs. If you don't, you actually have to kind of fight against it a little bit and stand up for yourself and say, thank you, no, not this exactly. But they also can open so many other doors. I was just talking with someone who's now at NYU again for the executive MBA program. And I said, use that card. You can reach out to anyone right now and say, hi, I'm a student. I'm curious. Will you talk with me? And see where that leads. It's interesting because we do have so many paths. There are many, many paths. I once took a young person to the University of Wisconsin, which is where I went for undergrad, and they were considering it. And I watched this beautiful, inquisitive, curious, not yet really decided person go from when someone at the very beginning of the tour would say, what are you studying? the very first day, her response was, I'm not sure. By the end of the 2 days there, her response was, I'm going to major in international business. But she had felt so much pressure to have an answer.
Yeah.
2 days of touring,
2 days.
not even being in school. 2 days was all it took for her to succumb to this not imagined pressure. It's pressure. And to join in and say, okay, I guess I need an answer.
This really sounds like a lesson about living life based on your values.
Yes.
And choosing that being happy and being healthy are the two things that you value most as far as emotional or feelings, and following those.
Yes.
What inspires you to write the book? Got to know this.
So my joke about writing this book is I've been writing this book for 10 years. For the first 8.5 years, I only told complete strangers. No one I knew knew that this was in my head and my heart. But complete strangers, I would say, oh, I'm writing a book. And they would leave, oh, wow, you're writing a book? What's it about? And I would tell them the title, and I would watch their bodies change. Their shoulders would fall away from their ears and they would lean in. And they'd say, oh my God, yeah, yeah. And then I'd feel really, really bad because I'd think, oh my God, I have to write more than the title. The title is not really a book. That's a catchphrase. I could feel it. I could feel the momentum. And then I did tell one person who loved me and knows me that I was thinking about this. And I wrote this book thinking that I was sitting across the table from you, my reader, having coffee.
I believe it. I can hear it. Yeah, I believe that.
That is how I wrote this book. That was that. So someone I love, who I was regularly having coffee with, would be sitting across from, I told, and she would say at various points, oh, that's a really good story. That's really interesting what you just told me. Is that a chapter in the book? Is that in the book? Write the book. Write it. Well, actually went so far as to introduce me to a writing coach without asking. And finally, I believe in these stories. And again, it's not important that you know my story. It's not that I want everyone to become, to focus on what I believe. I want you to know your story. The book starts with my mom asking me to become president of the United States. Oh, something had happened. Yeah. So I'm in college. Something horrible happens in the world. My mother calls me. I'm a sophomore in college, crying, asking me to become president of the United States.
So she really meant it. She wasn't joking.
Yes.
Wow. No pressure there.
No pressure. No pressure. I've never been the president of anything. Back to the majors. I did become a poli-sci major, but that has nothing to do with anything. She wanted me to be president. And I recognized, no, that would not make me happy. I think that would be a miserable job. But you get to decide what's important to you. I was talking with someone else about the book, and they said, but what if I want great? Like, what if fabulous, awesome. If there is something in you that is driving you, that amazing, incredible, but are there milestones on the way to getting there that you can celebrate and enjoy? Because otherwise that could be a really lonely, difficult, awful process. And or if there isn't something, like, again, I don't want to be president. I know that. My hope in writing this book is that people will use my stories to look at their stories and to think about what's important to them, and for them to write their stories in ways that help them. Because we're writing stories on social media and conversations with parents and business partners that aren't true. And it's really hard to live a story that's not yours.
It is, yes. Heather reminds us that being good isn't complacency, it's clarity. It's about redefining our metrics for enough and recognizing that joy, kindness, and connection are powerful measures of success. But once we know that, how do we listen for what's right for us? That's where intuition comes in. Now, let's join my conversation with intuitive consultant Jenn Cohen, who helps leaders learn to trust the signs that guide them. Our guest today is Jenn Cohen. She's an expert in helping leaders tune into the power of their intuition, and she's going to clear up some of these mysteries for us. Jenn has always been captivated by the power of intuition, and after a life-changing experience in her 20s, she explored how intuition could shape her life and career. During her 27 years in the entertainment industry, Jenn found that intuitive decisions often led to success. Now, as an intuitive consultant, she helps individuals and organizations unlock their potential, gain clarity, and achieve their goals through practical, intuition-based strategies. Jenn's work fosters growth, creativity, and purpose in both professional and personal realms. Jenn, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So, Jenn, let's backtrack to what happened in your 20s as a foundation for our discussion, our chat today.
Sure. So when I was 20 years old, I was just starting my junior year of college and got the unexpected phone call that my father had passed. And the evening of his funeral, I was obviously very distraught, and I was lying on his side of my parents' bed and just kind of calling out and saying, why? Why? What do I do now? And I was in pitch black darkness, and the light next to my side of the bed just flashed on and off and on and off. And I called out and I said, Dad, is that you? And flashed on and off and on and off. And it wasn't a circuit break. It wasn't, the neighborhood didn't lose power. It was clearly a sign that there was something there, and something was communicating, and I was connected with something that was not of physical form anymore. And I always believed that, but to have that confirmation was what set me off onto a different knowing, I'll say. And so I went back up to college, and I continued to get these signs where I'd be walking under streetlights and they'd just kind of flash on and off. And I'd get other kinds of signs where people wouldn't even notice, but it was me noticing those and knowing what was behind those flickering that started to tune me in to this thing that we call intuition. In my grief, I was feeling, obviously very sad about all the milestones that I wouldn't be able to experience with my father, but also I was feeling very unsafe because obviously that's the masculine figure in my life at that time. And so the anger part of grief, basically, and I didn't even understand at the time, I do now, is I gave him a job. And we made a pact that he was always going to take care of me through my profession. And he gratefully accepted that. And I knew it. And doesn't mean that I didn't have to work at it, but I didn't have to worry about it. And so I was very open to the signs and the synchronicities. A lot of people call them coincidences. I like to call them synchronicities that came into my life that led me onto a career path that was extremely gratifying for 27 years in the entertainment industry. And then when I was ready to leave the entertainment industry, he led me into this intuitive consultant journey.
So full circle. Wow.
Yeah.
Protected you on your path and brought you to where you are to be now. I'd like to focus on the power of intuition in our discussion, but I'd also like for the listeners to get to learn a little bit more about your career. I haven't shared much of it in the entertainment industry, but if you could give our listeners an idea, most of them are not from the United States, so their idea of what American life is like is what they see on TV or Netflix or whatever. So can you give them a little bit of a sense of what your career was like?
Sure. So I worked in film, in television, and and marketing basically on those, but I also did work in production. So that's those two, I'll just split those in two because there's kind of the corporate side of the house, which is, making sure that the creative that is being created, the shows that are being created are seen and are marketed to the correct people, distributed, all of those things. And that comes with a lot of data, that comes with a lot of analysis, that comes with a lot of opinions. And then the other side of the house is, much more of the creative energy. And that's where a lot of people can free flow with their intuitive selves. It's where, I like to say that writers are very much channels and actors are very much channels. They're just kind of allowing, their imagination, their creativity to flow through them. So very kind of right side of the brain, where the corporate side is much more the left side of the brain, organization, critical, comparing, oh, how's this network doing to this network, or streamer to this streamer, this studio to this studio, this actor to this actor, how's it ranking? So my position in my 27 years always found myself right in the middle of those two worlds. And I didn't plan it like that, but I knew that my brain could understand both sides pretty well. And I could translate a little bit more for people that solely, relied on the right side, their imagination, their creativity. That's where intuition lives, to get through the day, and could not understand the rigidness of the left brain. And then I could talk with the left brain people about, oh no, we're going into playland. Like, don't worry, you don't have to scope this out. We can ease up a little bit and have our playful side come in, which is not always easy when you're talking about finances and we're talking about money and we're talking about billions of dollars and we're talking about lots of people's jobs and we're talking about reputation. And across all of those departments and sectors of the entertainment industry, there's ego.
Mm-hmm.
And the ego is extremely fed in this
Mm-hmm.
industry. And so my role, and again, I didn't set out for this, but it's where my intuition led me. So anytime I would land myself in a marketing job, it was fascinating to watch that whenever I would interact with the production side or the creative side, it's almost like I would become part of that department. And I couldn't put it into words. It was just that I was able to tap into that part. So that's it in a nutshell.
Wow. It's such a gift to be able to be in the middle and to be able to identify with the people who are focused on in money mode and very much driven by their ego and what's familiar. And then to also be able to really empathize and be on the same page with people who are really in their spirit and really truly channels for whatever comes through. It's interesting. One of the things I notice is even with my husband and I very much make decisions based on my intuition. And my husband is an engineer by training and is a business broker
Mhm.
by profession. So it's very much data, facts, what's real is what matters, not what's not. We live in two different worlds. So it's interesting whenever we're having discussions about, making decisions. When you were working with the executives on the more left brain side, can the gifts of intuition be taught to someone who's in that space and they're really programmed and goal oriented and they're kind of in, I want to say, fight or flight mode all the time?
Such a good question. Yes. So intuition can be taught because we all have intuition. We refer to it, most of us refer to it as our sixth sense,
Mhm.
and not the I see dead people,
Mhm.
entertainment,
Mhm.
movie type of sixth sense, and getting over that hurdle is one thing. I like to think of it as our first sense,
Mhm.
as we are born into this world, but we all have it.
Mhm.
So when I would be dealing with a lot of the executives on more the critical mind part of the business, I would lean into what they were passionate about. outside of the actual work being done.
Mm.
And when I could tap into that, and again, it's more of a feeling, it's more of an energy. Even what you were just talking about with your husband when you said he deals in more of the reality of it. I would start to shift that because my reality is just as true
Mhm.
as their reality. And
Mhm.
so that when I would pick up on something like that, there would typically be a connection that I could make between the creative world and the world that they were talking about. And just those little tiny bridges when we could pull back. And because again, what they're saying and the data that they're giving, okay, fantastic. It's true. It's
Mhm.
true. It's true in their world. I just didn't give it more credence than the truth that I knew on the other
Mhm.
side. And so it would be kind of creating this bridge and not trying to prove them wrong because they're
Mhm.
not, but adding to their truths.
Mhm. So it's really owning your own gifts and owning who you are and owning what's real
Absolutely.
because it is real. It is real to you. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what the industry. Just when we're talking about entertainment, it obviously coincides with other industries, but you just can't have one side of the house. You're
Mhm.
working in tandem
Mhm.
together for the product, which is the television show or the creative or the film, whatever it is.
Mhm.
So getting past that egoic of they're trying to do this to me and they're making my job hard.
Mhm.
Actually, there's a lot under there,
Mhm.
and when we can get past that fear of what that executive is really operating from, we can then start to dust off those old ways of working
Mhm.
and really bring in this really kind of fun, imaginative way of working. And I would say 9 times out of 10, I would leave that meeting and they would have a different look in their eye. They would have a different energy feel, and they would be inspired in a way that was like, do you think we could get on a meeting with these creatives? Do you think that we could talk with them? Do you think, yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's amazing. That because that's what the connection is about is being able to help people communicate with each other and be on the same kind of the same frequency. They might have different skill sets, but having this coming together the same energy. That's amazing.
Yeah.
One of the things I talk about a lot on the podcast, and especially with my students in Avant-Garde Entrepreneur Academy, is the power of quiet time and getting quiet and having stillness, even if you're a mom of three and your phone is ringing because or you're getting text because the kitchen is on fire, whatever it is, that obviously those are extreme circumstances, but the importance of having some sort of quiet time during the day because with social entrepreneurs in particular, they're very much in uncharted territory. And a program that works in one village won't work in a village 5 kilometers away. There's just a very much a divide and things that will and won't work. I talk a lot about that the answers they're facing aren't in a book because, often what we learn from books and the actions that we take are kind of a composite of the things that we learn. It's not just one thing. So when someone is really wanting to harness their intuition, they're on the front line, they're dealing with all kinds of challenges, especially working in developing nations where there's so much need. What are the first steps for harnessing one's intuition for either whether that's personal or professional growth?
Well, I love what you said, the quiet. It's so key because we're surrounded by so much noise and distraction that pattern interrupt is huge. And however you're going to pattern interrupt, and again, it doesn't need to be hours at all. Your intuition is not something, it's not our job to hunt that down. It's our responsibility to get to a place to hear it.
Mhm.
And being able to hear it is really the key. That's the
Mhm.
starting point. So for me, that could be just walking outside for 2 minutes and nature. I love a good hike. The ocean is my best friend. Being able to get into the neutrality of nature
Hmm.
that's not charged,
Hmm.
that is a beautiful way to start to tap into your intuition. And what you can do there is you can start to observe your brain a little bit. When I walk outside and I can hear the birds chirping and I can see the flowers, just naming things and grounding myself in that. So I see a yellow flower, I see an oak tree, I see the blue ocean, and I hear the waves. And it just kind of grounds you in this present moment. And it kind of signals to your brain you're not being attacked. You're not under fire, your kitchen isn't on fire, all those things where it's like, oh, wait, my mind has either gone into worry mode, which is future, or anxiety mode, which is past. And I'm taking that on in the present right now. And your intuition again can only live in the present moment. So that's just the very first tip is getting your body and your nervous system into a neutral state. And the quickest way I have found is nature, water, if you can't get outside, a quick shower, if you can, running your hands under cold water. But water is, I mean, our body is primarily made of water, and that definitely helps.
That's amazing. I have never thought of it that way. I've talked about that nature is the healing frequency. I think it's 582 hertz or something. I had not even thought about the power of just running your hands underwater or having a
Hmm.
shower if you can. And I think showers are the best because there's no distractions. I get so many downloads from showers. And
Yes.
that's
Yeah,
so
they've got an active
amazing.
audience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I love that
Yeah.
just running your hands underwater. That's amazing that you can connect to the power of nature from your sink. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I love that you distinguish between co the term coincidences and synchronicities. I love that word
Hmm.
synchronicities. It's such a beautiful word, I think, in any language. What are the
Yeah.
common signs and synchronicities? Maybe some that you've noticed, or how do you help your clients recognize them and identify meaning in them when they come across their path?
Yeah, and can't you even feel like a different energy between, oh, that was a coincidence and that was a
Mhm.
synchronicity. Like I smile
Yes.
when I say it
Yes.
and right?
It's like
And
future
and
and hope. And yeah, yeah.
right, so
Yeah.
language is huge for our
Mhm.
intuitive selves too. And you can feel that if you say those words, coincidence is almost like a throwaway line. Like
Mhm.
it's discarding what happened.
Mhm.
And when we say synchronicity, it's like, oh, that's cool. There's like some magic in there.
Yes.
And and that's the feeling of a sign. That's the feeling of tuning in, and that's getting very close, if not the feeling that you get when your intuition strikes. It's like it's trusting in the knowledge that you're getting, and it doesn't have to be spoken in language. It because intuition, when in knowing, there's no question attached. And knowledge doesn't operate in language. We give language to it. And
Mhm.
so that intuitive state, just by practicing, you could say coincidence versus synchronicity and see how you feel, see how your chest feels, see how expansive it feels versus contracting when you say certain words. And that's just, again, these are like muscles that you're activating. It's just like exercise. It's just like practice. We've all gotten to the point that we've gotten through practice and we forget it so quickly once we've achieved it. But we didn't just go from kindergarten to college.
Mhm.
There were lots of steps in between there. What's amazing about our intuitive sense and where we are when we activate that in our lives is that it comes online very quickly because it has been trying to get our attention for many, many years. It's a sense that we're born with. It was unlearned and then it was kind of cast aside as the more important, I put that in quotes, senses of how we live our life took hold. And we can go into all those reasons, but I won't right now. And so, an easy way to start with your signs. First of all, I've got to recommend a book by Laura Lynn Jackson called Signs. Um,
Okay.
it's amazing. Um, and one thing that she talks about that I've done many times is you can assign your sign. So
Mm,
you can say, basically, okay, intuition, show me this sign. And it can be something like a purple hippopotamus. And when I see that, then I know, like, then I will get the feeling of knowing. And it can be a cartoon, it can be on a commercial where a purple hippopotamus comes up, it can be in a children's book that you just walk by, but that sign will come up. But you do have to become aware and you
mhm,
have to trust that it's coming up. It's not I'm going to prove you wrong, because you are going to prove them wrong.
mhm.
You are in control of proving them wrong. So it's going in with a very open spirit and in a playful imaginative way. And that's the first step that I take people through with their signs. And then when I work with my clients, it happens 9 times out of 10. We'll go through a session, and then I would say in the last 5 sessions, they'd say, "Oh, I have to tell you something funny that happened." And they will tell me the most magical sign that they had received, but they had discarded it. And so it's just a little bit of rejiggering of how we see the world and how we choose to interact with the world.
That feels really good to think that we can name our sign so that we're not I don't want to say vulnerable or a victim, that we're not just waiting, that we have some, and I don't want it to control or power, but if we're talking about the power of intuition, that does put us on the front foot where we're able to sort of name our sign.
Yeah.
And that way when it shows up, we know what it is.
Yeah.
It's amazing. As we wrap up this Thanksgiving week in America, I want to thank you for showing up, for listening, and for continuing to grow with me in this incredible community of change makers. Heather reminded us that good is enough. And Jen reminded us to trust what we already know down deep. So this week, I hope you give yourself permission to pause, to breathe, and to notice the small, quiet moments that remind you just how much there is to be grateful for. From my heart to yours, thank you for being part of Avant-Garde Entrepreneur. I'm Dr. Trisha Bailey, wishing you peace, purpose, and plenty of gratitude this Thanksgiving.